Hello and welcome to another episode of The Coder Career. We're edging towards 50 episodes now. It's another video episode. It's great to be here. I am joined today by Colin and Phil. Do you each want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Phil. I can go first then. What did I say about this? I'm always kind of in deer in headlights at this moment. I'm a software developer turned data scientist, turned anti 9 to 5, trying to work from home. It's probably the 30-second summary.
And I'm Colin.
Over
I'm the
to,
co-host of this podcast. Hopefully people know that. But if you don't, I'm Colin Riddell. I'm a software engineer and co-founder of the Coder Career.
Yeah, so for new listeners as well, I'm a former technical recruiter. Colin is a former senior instructor at CoClan, who are also our sponsor. So, we try and give you that kind of learning experience from all sides of the table. So, I guess if we go right into it, Phil, do you want to tell us a bit about, you're now an entrepreneur, but you've been a data scientist, you've been a software engineer, you've kind of worn quite a few technical hats. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've ended up in the point where you are now as an entrepreneur?
yeah, I started in school, I guess. Liked hacking about with websites. I was known as the website guy, basically in school, doing PHP, just all that sort of stuff. And applied to uni for lots of different courses, to be honest with you. And I can distinctly remember going and meeting the professor or whatever and saying, "Is there any way that I can do computing without programming?" For whatever reason, I was like phobia of programming. I don't know why. I just thought I thought I might not like it or something. But it turns out I love it. It was definitely the right choice. So I went did computing science, then worked for a bit, realised that I don't know. I've just always wanted to do my own thing, pretty much. So I ended up going back to uni. I got an opportunity to do a PhD, and I just jumped on it. Basically, it was the best 4 years of my life. Pretty much, it was just the freedom of doing your own thing and like researching a very niche area was amazing. And then that obviously came to an end, and then I was back to the workforce. I mean, it's not that I'm like anti-work or something. I'm just kind of like, I like doing my own thing. I like working my own schedule. I'm not a big fan of commuting, like, all the things that traditionally you have to do with a normal job. So I worked for a few years in industry as a data scientist, and ultimately, I'm sure we'll get to it, but built a website on the side that kind of went semi-viral, and I've made the leap. And that's where I am, 7 months into it full time. But yeah, I'm sure we'll speak about that later.
I mean, what is the website? I mean, first off, I've actually been aware of you
I'm
for a
building
while.
suspense.
I'm going to sound a bit creepy here, but I think I've been following you on Twitter and LinkedIn for quite a while, because I've always thought your website is
Nice.
really cool.
Appreciate it. So it's called 4dayworkweek.io. And essentially, as you can probably guess, it's a job board for jobs with a 4-day work week. And the kind of number one thing that people always think when you say 4-day week, they either assume that it's 4 10-hour days, which is not. I don't list any jobs that are more than 36 hours. And they also then think, okay, it must be like a less salary, but it's also not. It's just literally what you think it is, 4 normal days. And there's a huge movement to kind of reduce the working week for a number of reasons. I can bore you in that as well if you want. But so yeah, 4dayweek.io, it's a job board for jobs with a 4-day week. Currently 8 months into it full time, and long may it continue. There's actually a pilot going on at the moment. Loads of companies across the UK and America are trialing a 4-day week. So I've kind of got a little bit lucky in that respect. There's a bit of a tailwind behind me. But I'm not I'm not complaining. So yeah.
Are you involved in that in any official capacity, or are you just sort of taking the tailwind off it, as you say?
So I am talking to the team 4-day week global, and we're kind of maybe going to be teaming up in something, but I'm not like on the board or anything. I mean, initially I thought it could be a bit of a kind of competitive situation, but they're really nice, and we're all in it for kind of the same movement. They have the 4dayweek.com domain, which I've always wanted, but you can't have it all,
I think your .io domain's cooler anyway. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
maybe
lie.
so. My dad doesn't like it. He's like, .io, what's that?
Well, what does it stand for? I heard someone told me it was Indian Ocean, but I never had
It
that
is a
confirmed.
country, yeah. It's not input output, put it that way. I think it's a country.
Yeah.
I actually found out .co. I just thought that was company. That's Colombia. I had no
Yeah, it
idea.
is,
So there
isn't
you
it?
go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all
and
Yeah.
geographical.
what was it? Tuvalu, I think it's pronounced, the island in the Pacific. They made so much money from selling the .tv domain name rights, basically, that they were able to afford to join the UN. And it's basically sustaining the economy, and it's like a sizable percentage of their GDP, and has been since like the late 90s. It's pretty cool. And is it them, or it might be .fm, Federated States of Micronesia? It's one of the two. But yeah, very, very cool, for sure. It's it's funny, all this domain this domain
The
name
domain
stuff.
name stuff, like I'm kind of into it in a weird nerdy way, but like these new domains come out, XYZ and yada 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 yada. I didn't realize they get like auctioned off. I don't even know who auctions them, but they auction them off to like GoDaddy and like other kind of domain name providers, and they bid on them. Like the top ones are always the ones you could imagine, and then like things .app, but they're all just bidded on, and then they own the rights, and then they kind of lease it out. It's a mad racket, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly is. And it's one of those weird ones where like they've really opened it up recently as well. So I don't really understand some of these new ones, but who am I to judge? But there's all kinds of weird ones like .garden and things like, I suppose if you run a what am I thinking of? A shop where you buy plants. Help me. What's it called? I live in a flat,
like
so
a
I have no
garden
need for
centre.
this. Garden centre. That's the one.
You okay, Cameron?
Yeah, it's been a long Monday. But yeah, I mean, it's a weird one.
See
So
the whole domain names. Sorry, just talking about. So I could talk a long time about domain names. My pal actually told me one time, stop talking about domains. But like, see, like the whole sitting on domains, it's insane. I tried to buy a domain name last week in the blockchain space. Unbelievable. Literally every combination is gone. You got to pay like $5,000 for anything that has blockchain in it. Anyway, ran over. Sorry.
You have to pay $5,000 to do literally anything in the blockchain, including reading and writing data to the blockchain. Don't get me started on how stupid that whole thing is.
Have you done that then? Have you been experimenting?
I've experimented, yeah. It costs quite a bit to like write something to a fairly big chain, but unless you use like ZK rollups or all any of that madness, but that ends up
How does it work though? Do you write to like a test chain or something? Is there like a free?
Yeah, you can
test
write to test chains, or you can write to like a version of it that's partial, or a version of it that doesn't have its right put to the bigger version of it just yet, and they're delayed and rolled up and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit mad.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated, yeah.
Yeah, blockchain in general is a contentious issue on this podcast. Me and Colin have gone to war on it on many occasions. More so Web3, to be fair. I'm more optimist, and Colin's more realist, if we're being complimentary. I'm a bit more head in the clouds about it. But definitely. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I don't have the traditional background in computer science, so I'm less of a realist.
I think it's just because I'm older and like more old school. And I just sort of think like if something's not broken, why try and fix it? Like if how we build apps just now and applications isn't that broken, then why should we try and fix it in a way that it's going to cost an absolute arm and a leg to be able to like do anything? But
it needs a killer application. I think that's what it needs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still optimist a little bit, but lately I've been kind of more worried about the whole thing, and just like needs something. NFTs isn't going to cut it. That isn't the killer application. Who knows? Maybe this is going to age really poorly.
It's the killer application that'll probably kill Web3 when people start realizing what they actually are. Anyway.
A pointer to an image on a server. Anyway.
Exactly.
I think whilst the developments are exciting around like moving to proof of stake and stuff, I agree. There definitely does need to be some kind of killer application, but we'll see. It could go. VR is making a big comeback now, so everyone was saying that. I mean, I wasn't really around to talk about tech in the late 90s, but apparently that's what everyone was on about back then. So who knows? I'm not one to be able to tell. I've been basically every time I've tried to buy in on crypto, it basically dumps. So I'm swearing away from it for a while, I think.
Good shout.
Yeah.
So 4-day work week then. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah,
that's all right. Yeah. So
happy to.
The site looks really good. I think I said to Steve before we came on air, but the site looks really good. You said that you've been working on that full time for 7 months. Is that and you're working on it for quite a while before that, or how long has it taken you
Yeah.
to kind of build what you've got?
So I mean, like I've honestly launched so many failed businesses. I could bore you with that. So I thought with this one, do what everyone tells you. Just build a simple landing page, put it on the internet, let people see it, and don't have a product. I literally had no product. I literally just made a Webflow page. It said it was initially the worst name ever, 28hourworkweek.com or something mad. Anyway, I put it on Hacker News and just had an email form. I couldn't believe it. Like it was the first time I kind of felt like maybe product market fit or something. It just like
PMF.
instantly,
Yeah,
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 it just
yeah.
instantly got people signing up. I couldn't believe it. So I was
Eric
like,
Ries is probably going, "Oh my god, this guy used the build, measure, learn technique."
So yeah, I mean, put it on like on Hacker News, and yeah, it went straight to the top. I had about 400 signups or something the first couple of days, and then from there, I was like, right, I should probably make a website. I had done loads of React stuff in the past, old janky projects with kind of cobbled together. And I thought, I'm not going to build this from scratch. I'm just going to copy and paste an old thing I've got, change the logo, just hack it into a quick format. So I had it online probably within a week, a basic version of it anyway. And then from there, it's just been learning about SEO and all this sort of stuff, and really trying to, previous mistakes I've made are like just putting it live and thinking it's going to go viral every day. It's not going to happen. You need to get like consistent traffic. So I just read up on SEO and that sort of stuff, and yeah, I've been posting blog articles. That was kind of how it started about 4-day work week, and then eventually got a bit more serious about it, put a bit of money into it, buying like these kind of they feel a bit dirty. I'm not gonna lie. These kind of SEO blog articles, you know the ones I'm sure, but they get clicks through Google. So, but I ended up paying for them each month through an agency. And yeah,
Paying for
I
them to
worked on.
be made to be written by people.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
so the problem with most people, like when you go on like Upwork, right, to get like a blog
yeah.
written, they're just going to go and use GPT-3. It's an absolute nightmare, honestly.
Really?
It's
Wow.
constantly battling people trying to do it cheap and quick, which I don't blame them. That's how it works. So I
Uh-huh.
got an agency, proper agency, paid them reasonable money, and yeah, they're just putting out 4 blog articles a month. And
Okay.
honestly, it's been amazing. You put them up, you wait a few months, and it's getting thousands of traffic a day. It's
And
mental.
you're finding that style of content marketing is working really well. Then I mean, this isn't an
Yeah, yeah,
entrepreneurship
yeah,
or
yeah.
content marketing
Sorry,
podcast, but
sorry, sorry, sorry. I'm
I'm
going down
just
a rabbit
really
hole.
interested.
Yeah.
I'm just personally
Yes.
really interested. It's me that's taken us this direction, so don't apologize. You find that that
Yeah,
that kind of
definitely. I
level of
mean,
content marketing.
so basically just writing about work-life balance and all these kind of
Yep.
things. You get people that are kind of interested in the topic, and then they see the logo at the top left that just says 4-day week.
Yep.
And yeah, they end up being subscribers. But I mean, we can talk about the tech if you want. It's not that interesting. To be honest with you, see, after 2 years of working on this, see if I was going to
Yeah.
start again, I would go the most boring tech going. I'm not even going
What's
to
the
lie.
most boring tech
Yeah,
going?
Like
Do you
that's a
think? Matt?
controversial
like,
one.
well, like the most boring or like standard would be WordPress, and I have nothing against
Right.
WordPress. It
Absolutely.
does exactly what it does.
It's
And
a heavy
then
lifter.
lately, I've been learning Ruby on Rails, and it honestly blew
Mm-hmm.
my mind. I've been coding for years, and Ruby on Rails is just like amazing. Just does everything exactly how I want it to do it.
Yeah, Rails is insane. Ruby's
So
terrible,
good.
but Rails is insane.
Yeah, exactly. I wish it was like Python on Rails or something, but anyway. I guess that's Django, is it? I don't know. I've never used that. But yeah, so I did it on React, and React is great, whatever. But see if you're building like a really simple website that's just a job board, I don't
Yeah.
need React really. I just need
Yep.
something that's just going to give me HTML. And if it's got HTML, it means it's good for SEO. Sorry, I know we're going down the
Yeah.
marketing again, but that's kind of one of the big
So
things.
we had an episode a few episodes back. Some of our episodes we talk more technical content, and we do like a
Mm-hmm.
what really is. 2 of our episodes recently was what really is React, and then the follow up to that was what really is Next and SSR.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, jeez.
yeah,
Flashbacks of
is that a
PTSD.
flashback headache?
PTSD.
So did you write your site in pure React and then be like, oh, I need to make this actually
Yeah.
renderable server side?
Yeah. Oh, honestly, when the first seems really like novice saying this, but the first time I
Interesting.
realized it was when I tried to share the link on Twitter. And when I share the link on Twitter, it doesn't have the
Nah.
headline of the page. It doesn't have the image. It just looks like the homepage. Everything's the
Yeah, there's
homepage.
no HTML meta
Yeah.
tag nonsense or
Nothing.
none of that. Yep.
absolute nightmare. And then I read up on it, and it's like, yeah, if you're doing, it's like something they don't tell you really. If you're not,
Yeah,
you know, so you end
It's
up
yeah,
pretty
6
shocking
months down the
considering it's
line.
like the standard, and then you realize like down the line because I'm exactly the same. Like I'd been coding in React professionally, but I'd only ever worked on internal tools. So I was like, oh, it's fine, just
Hmm.
use React for everything. It's amazing, and then didn't
Yeah.
realize that SEO, which is just such an important component of everything you work on if you do anything
yep.
business facing,
Hmm.
then it's yeah, they never tell you. So I
They
say
don't tell
they
you
like
that.
in the doc. Well, I guess they
Yeah.
wouldn't in the docs,
They,
but yeah.
And then
I know.
honestly, like CSSR, server side rendering, which just if people don't know, I didn't know this a few months ago. You've got React. I mean, it spits to the website. It's just there's no HTML. It's
Yep,
literally
it's
just
all
empty.
JavaScript. Yeah.
So to Google, it looks like an empty website,
Hmm.
which is bad for like finding websites on Google because they
Yeah.
don't know what your bloody website's about. So you've got to do this thing called server-side rendering, which honestly, I won't bore you, but it's the most nightmarish thing I have ever done in like all my years of programming. It was
Just
awful.
for the listeners out there, we've got an episode number, whatever it is. We can't remember what episode number it is. I'll put it in the show notes on explaining SSR and then Next.js and all that for you. So yeah,
Hmm.
you were saying,
Yeah, just it was a nightmare. I would not recommend it. It's took me weeks and weeks and weeks to get working, and even now it's so janky and like it's held together with sellotape,
and
and
are
it
you
falls over.
using? Is it like pure React SSR, or is it React with like Next or Nuxt
No
or
next, nothing,
no?
none of these things. I looked
Right. Okay.
into it to be honest with you, and
Yep.
maybe I glossed over it, but I kind of felt that if I was going to go down the next route,
Hmm.
I'd have to like kind of almost rewrite it or like copy and paste so much. I didn't really
Yeah,
quite
you'd have to.
understand it.
Yeah, you'd have to make a bunch of pages and all the rest of it. All right.
I
Okay.
just wasn't
Cool.
into that. So yeah, did it
So
the traditional way.
what handles the SSR part of your site then, just to get a little bit more
So
technical?
basically, my backend like was built in Go, and that was another thing. It doesn't
Oh,
handle Go. You've got to basically do
yeah.
it in like Node, basically or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had to rewrite the whole bloody backend. It was just a horrible experience from start to finish, and I wouldn't.
You rewrote it
In like just
in
Node.js.
Node. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Yep.
yeah. So wasn't fun. To be honest with you, the backend was a very small thing anyway. But yeah, awful.
I've
I
heard
do like
Golang
talking
is,
about
is
it.
good to
It's
code
like,
in though, from what I understand. Like I've given it a crack a couple of times, but I can never. I do want to learn something like lower level
mhm,
than those, and I've
yeah.
been trying to decide between Go and Rust. And yeah, it's a difficult one actually because both seem good, but Rust gets rated high usually, but Go seems
Rust
like
is
there's more stuff built in it.
sorry, yeah, Rust. I mean, I've never used Rust, but I hear it's whatever all the rage at the moment. But it doesn't mean it's maybe the best. I love Go.
True.
Honestly, I've been using it forever, and it just does everything really well. I mean, Google made it, and not to be a Google fanboy, but like if they start a language from scratch, it's going to be pretty decent. It's fast, like so fast. It's like a good hybrid between like something that's really readable, like maybe Python, and something that's really fast, like C or whatever. Yeah, I would recommend Go. Maybe not to like start out coding with. I don't think I would ever start with Go, but once you get into your swing, it's good for writing low level, fast programs for sure.
Yeah, it's tough to start out with something low level. Like I love CS50, the program from Harvard, and I do recommend it to a lot of people. But they make people
I've
do
never heard of that.
C.
I don't. What's
It's
that?
really
Yeah,
good. So the presenter is amazing. I think Colin, you either went through it or you recommended it to people as well, right? And it's been going on for years.
I've
Um,
actually not. I've actually never went through it.
have you never
No.
gone through it? Well, it's like
No.
module one is Scratch, so it's basically like a toy programming language more or less, and it's all like totally graphical, like building blocks. And then module two is C, and it's just completely brutal. And then after that, they introduce you to JavaScript and Python. So I just remember just sitting feeling like so dumb at the C code. I guess their idea is they drop you into the deep end really early on, and just so you can understand the fundamentals. But I'm not sure. Not sure if I was teaching. I'm not sure I'd go for C first. I
no.
think I
What
tend
did you
to.
start with? Out of interest.
So I started with JavaScript and then briefly did a bit of Python, then switched back to JavaScript. And I think
Hmm.
as someone that's self-taught, there's definitely the most content for JavaScript online. So it was one of those things where I could just, and also because it's runs on a web browser, like I could
Mhm.
easily practice it at work on like my work issued laptop when I was doing recruitment. So it was just one of those things that the ecosystem is just there really easily to learn JavaScript online, and it's not as plain English as something like Ruby on Rails, but it is very plain English. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think obviously it was still a challenge, but that's what I would recommend people either JavaScript or Python as their first one in 2022.
totally agree. Definitely. Would you say
Speaking
the same,
purely
Colin? Were
objectively, though,
you?
Ruby on Rails is
Oh.
would be a good one as well. It's just the job market's not as good as it was. I remember when I started as a recruiter, though,
Yeah,
like Ruby on Rails smashed everything else out of the park job wise.
yeah. Yeah, it feels slightly on the decline, but I feel like, yeah, just because it's mature doesn't mean it's, yeah, it depends what you're learning it for. If it's to get a job, fair enough. But if it's just to build
Mm.
something quick, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, while we're talking about jobs, something I wanted to ask you about as well. Like, obviously, I can predict that your answer about the 4-day work week, about whether it's the future work. But what do you see as, in more of a macro sense, the future work for people
Hmm.
in our industry? Because, like, obviously, for us, it is possible to work from home and everything like that. You know, certain other jobs right now, it's just not really possible. But for us, say software engineers and other technical people, what do you think the future of the job market could be for
Hmm.
people like us, both in terms of working hours and trends and working setups?
I mean, there's so many things going on, to be honest with you. I mean, of super high level, I don't see the demand slowing down anytime soon for software. I think no code could have a slight kind of weird thing with it, but I don't think it's going to be negative. I think it could be positive by like bringing more people in to create more jobs. I don't know. I've not really thought too deep about it. But on the kind of future of work thing, I think there's a few things. Obviously, the 4-day week is one. I think asynchronous working is going to be much more common. Just like, now we're working from home, everyone. It's kind of like, 4 in the morning is no different from 4 in the afternoon for some people. So it's like, as long as you get the work done kind of mentality, rather than sticking strictly to 9 to 5. Um, I have a slightly, don't know if this is contrarian view or whatever, but I don't know if hybrid work. I kind of feel like if you're going to go remote, do remote. If you're not going to do remote, do remote. I feel like the benefits of having an office are great, but if only half the office is in, I'm kind of
Mm.
not sure on it, to be honest with you.
Mm.
I kind of feel that it could be a two-sided marketplace, very strong remote and very office with not a lot in the middle. I might be wrong on that one. Um, and yeah, the whole like change to remote work has been insane. Like the amount of change that's happened in the last few years has just never happened since like the Industrial Revolution or something. For a lot of companies, remote work was the ultimate benefit. It would bring in people to apply. That's been rug pulled. So a lot of these companies are like, right now, what are we going to offer to attract talent? Because it's difficult to get software engineers, especially. I think the 4-day week could be one of them. But yeah, there's just so much going on. What do you guys think? Future trends about the workplace?
The 4-day week one's definitely interesting. There's been a few companies in tech that have tried that out, like in the
Hmm.
last few years. I remember, I can't remember what they're called, but there's like an Edinburgh company that were doing it years ago.
Administrate?
Administrate, yeah, they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
doing it. They were doing it for quite a while, and like I think it works fairly well. Like the idea of it, and the thing about hybrid, I find what you said quite interesting because I actually think hybrid works really well for not everyone, but for some people, it definitely works really
Yeah.
well for me. I get to go into the office once a week, but like it's really more of like a kind of partially social,
Hmm.
keeping your mind straight
Yeah.
on, like having a little bit of interaction, and getting out the house for a day type thing, rather than it's not the same as like going to your desk and then turning to the person who sits next to you who like works with you and being like having that same collaboration, unless you like organize people all to go in. So yeah, I think it can work fairly well in certain situations. It'll
It's
maybe work less good going forward if more and more people, like if like the population of people that are in an industry in an area all start to all work remote. So for example, somebody just left the place I work and I worked with that person coincidentally at a previous company too. And then we were sort of making a laugh about how the chances of us working again together are now slimmer because we're both now part of a bigger market, if that makes sense. Previously, we only used to be part of the Scotland tech market because that's where you could get a job. Now we're both part of essentially a global market, so the chances of us bumping into each other again are actually like so much smaller. So that's really interesting in itself.
It's
Yeah.
pretty not terrifying, but like it's so much change can come from like this globalization. A good, I would say overall. But I kind of think that companies that only recruit like UK remote or whatever, I think that'll decline. I just don't see why you need to keep it such a strict. Why just UK? Why not France, Spain, anyone within a GMT plus 3 minus time zone? And I think it's going to have an impact on like like San Francisco, like Bay Area salaries. I just don't know how that can sustain going forward because now you can hire from anywhere really. Brazil, anyone in that kind of time zone. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong there, but I just think it's going to have a lot of knock-on impacts. Pretty much all good, I should say. But yeah, what do you think, Cam? So I think I
It
interrupted you there.
No, it's all right. It's an interesting one because I feel like there's been a lot of people worried about outsourcing for a very long time. It's hard for me to say really about the remote stuff because I've actually only been a software. I literally got my first software engineering job, I think a week before the stay-at-home order kind of came out for COVID. So I've been a software engineer for getting on 3 years now professionally. So it's hard for me to say. So I've never worked in the office as an engineer, so I can't say what the difference is like. I personally, since I've been into like hubs to work because my current employer does a hub system. I work 400 miles away here in Scotland, whereas they're down in London, and it's a weird one where I feel like I now can't work, and I would imagine a lot of people that are sort of only been in a career for a few years will now find it really hard to work in an office environment. Like I'm probably the least productive at any point when I'm in the office, just because the littlest thing distracts me. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you say about the cross border thing. I think a lot of the time, maybe it's just tax laws and stuff, but I mean, my current place, we have people all over Europe. So I guess once you get to a certain size, you can accommodate it. I guess it's maybe the smaller companies that can't, but it always provides some cool opportunities for developers from the UK to go and live somewhere else for a while, which is always a good thing to do. So I know a lot of people have moved down to Portugal, same time zone, nicer weather than Scotland. So I understand why people do it, but for me, I think I'd get sunburned on Christmas Day there. So I'm definitely fine sticking in Edinburgh.
Join the club.
And I mean, actually, speaking of Scotland, I had this question lined up a while ago. Now that we've moved to more of a remote as standard model, what do you think is the future across, I guess, not just a central belt, but in general for Scotland? And do you think things are looking bright, or are you a bit more pessimistic on it?
So I've been kind of out the scene in some respects for I guess for a little while now, but I would say overall it's probably as good as it's ever been. I mean, you go back to when I graduated uni, there was only a few big tech companies in Glasgow. Like JP Morgan was always like the flagship one. Now they're one of many. Edinburgh, I think, probably has maybe slightly more. I don't know. I've not done the maths on it, but there's loads. Skyscanner, FanDuel. You're at FanDuel, right, Colin? Is that?
Yeah,
Am I right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, there's loads.
yep.
I also
There's,
think as well, like I was thinking today, see with the whole pound issue, like going down,
oh yeah,
I was
Hopefully,
kind of
that's a very
thinking,
out of date thing
yeah,
within
yeah.
a few
Hopefully, this
days.
is when you watch this, yeah. I was thinking, well, I was just thinking a lot of American companies use Glasgow and Edinburgh as a kind of like soft out, offshore, whatever the right word is there, where
mhm.
it's English spoken. It's not the worst time zone in the world if you're East Coast, I guess. Um, Maybe that'll encourage more companies. I think the trend has been recently quite a few kind of decent sized American companies have opened offices in Glasgow and Edinburgh, and I think if there's a weakening, if a stronger dollar, who knows, maybe it'll continue. But I would say overall, it's as good as it's ever been. But as you say, Colin, like the remote thing definitely changes the feel of all kind of communities. It's not like just the Scotland scene almost. It's
Yeah.
wider than that.
I actually tried to take advantage of it basically 1 year too early. So I was in my previous place of work, CodeClan, and shout out to them. Thanks for sponsoring us.
What a
And
segue, because that is where we'll put the advert.
absolute segue. We may as well cut.
The Coder Career Podcast is brought to you by CodeClan. As the only coding bootcamp in Scotland, CodeClan is a fantastic way for people in Edinburgh and Glasgow to learn to code in person. And if you're elsewhere in the UK, you can still benefit from their remote cohorts. With over 1,500 graduates, 70% of which get a full-time job within 6 months at one of CodeClan's 390 hiring partners, CodeClan is a fantastic place to make a change in your career. CodeClan is also making great strides towards reducing the gender gap in technology, with over 25% of their alumni now being female, with this rapidly growing. With average starting salaries of around £30,000, a world-class curriculum, and a forward-thinking organisation, CodeClan is the place to be. As a former senior instructor at CodeClan, Colin can tell us even more.
Yeah, absolutely. CodeClan is an absolutely phenomenal place to be, place to work, place to study. It's a coding bootcamp, and it does full-time professional software engineering and data courses. The software engineering course is called the PSD, and the data course is called the PDA. Both these courses are 12 to 16 weeks full-time. They are fully instructor-led, which is 100% instructor interaction. That's one of the things that really sets them apart from other courses that you can take. For example, you can do quite a lot of courses online for coding and software engineering that are not instructor led and are maybe through like a learning platform. Whereas CodeClan stuff, whether it's remote or in person, they're fully instructor led. You can literally stop the instructor halfway through a lesson to ask a question, and if anything, that's actually encouraged. The whole course is designed to take someone who has very little experience all the way up to a junior software engineer, such that they're able to become a junior software engineer in an organization. And the course hits on all of the basics, mostly around Python, JavaScript, Java, but as well as that, the software engineering principles and all of the really important fundamentals behind software engineering and coding and clean code. That all gets taught in this interactive, immersive way at CodeClan. One of the other great things about CodeClan is that people often say, can I learn like Rust, or can I learn Swift or something like that? You actually can't like learn tons and tons and tons of things on the course, because there only is so much time, and you can only fit in so many like languages and skills. But one of the great things about it is that it gives you the ability to learn those things later on. It doesn't just say here's React and here's JavaScript and whatever else, and then off you go. The instructors that you get on CodeClan are so helpful, and they're so good at knowing exactly what people are thinking and feeling at various points in the course, because it is a very intensive course. But at least there's between 2 to 4 instructors per class, and that's for both remote classes and in-person classes. And everyone learns in the cohort at the same pace, which is excellent. It's really good to know that, for example, the way that they teach on the course, which is so important to me, the way that they teach is that they use a lot of what we called code alongs. And a code along is where an instructor kind of quite slowly and methodically codes out something in front of the class, whether it's on Zoom or in person in the classroom. And then the class slowly like code that thing together. We call that a code along. And that's actually a really powerful way to learn, because you're seeing the actual coding process happen in front of you, but you're also being taught at the same time. And as a participant, as a student, what you can actually do is you can stop and you can have a conversation and you can ask questions. CodeClan is kind of a life-changing thing. I've seen dozens and dozens and hundreds of people go through it in the time that I was there, and it was genuinely life-changing for every single one of them. They managed to get jobs as software engineers, junior software engineers in the industry. And even now, uh, being a couple of years ago that I worked there, I know many of the people I know are now mid level, kind of senior level engineers. So it's having a huge impact on people's lives, and in a way that I couldn't even describe. It's pretty awesome. To get more information about CodeClan, go to codeclan.com and /events, codeclan.com/events, to learn more and to register for a workshop. The workshops that they do are kind of like a way of you figuring out if you want to come along to Code Clan and join up and do the course. And it's a really great way of figuring out if this is the sort of thing that's going to be useful to you. Please give it a try if you're thinking about it. I highly recommend it. It's absolutely fantastic, genuinely life changing. I tried to get the jump about a year early. I noticed that this pandemic thing had changed everything, and I was working at Code Clan, and I fancied the change out of Code Clan and to like a more engineering kind of focused role back into getting my sleeves up, rather than the teaching stuff. And I thought, right, I'll now take advantage of this global marketplace that we're now in. Like, and this would be, you know, like April 2020.
That was
Have I got
That's
that
exactly when
right?
COVID
COVID
year.
hit. So was it the
Yeah.
year before?
Nah, it
March.
must have been. It must have been the year. Must have been April 2021. Then, yeah, it would have been, or
If it makes you feel any
February.
better, by the way, I forgot what year it was the other day.
I
Just
think
thought I'd
it was
throw
the
that
start.
out.
It was the start of year in 2021. That's what it was.
So COVID was a thing already.
COVID very much as a thing,
Mhm.
but I was like, right, COVID's not a thing. I want to get a job, but I want to be able to not restricted. So I basically made a list of like all the companies that I'll be able to work remotely for. Started with like Google at the top, and kind of worked my way down and all the rest of it. And I came across so many companies at the time that were just like still not entertaining the idea of this kind of globalized marketplace and like remote working and stuff like that. And I got a job at Fanjo. Fast forward a year later, now that whole thing's changed, and there's now very much like a appetite for most companies to hire remotely, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. I'm just so glad it finally happened, and it's shocking that it took us like the pandy to like get us to that stage.
The pandy. I like that. It's what brought me back to Scotland. Finally, I mean,
The
as you can
pandy.
tell, Phil, it's been a while since that I lived down south, as you can tell from my accent. But yeah, it's such a good opportunity for people to move elsewhere, because it meant that in the UK our tech scene was so concentrated into the southeast. I think it's already done a great thing, because the thing is, people do leave and set up their own startups, and I think we could really see the benefits of this over the next 20 years. And I know a lot of people like me that had a Scottish background, grew up mainly in the southeast, and then have moved up since. Like, I know at least 3 other people in my position, and we all work in tech. So the potential for a lot of people that have left London and gone elsewhere, I think it will be very exciting to see over the next 10 to 20 years, like how the country is now going to be more of an even playing field, and everything won't be so London centric.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sure you've seen what's happened in like San Francisco, but at one point there was an exodus, like an actual,
Yeah.
everyone left, and I kind of feel that, that's maybe a indicator of what's to come. I kind of feel that a lot of people might leave the city because there's not really as much need for them to be there. Most people live in the city because they need to work in the city, or a good chunk anyway. And if you don't need to live in the city, well, why do you pay the rent of the city? So yeah, there could be a bit of a move to the country, like a reverse industrial revolution. But anyway, that's proper macro. That's
That's an
we'll
interesting
see what
thought, yeah.
happens.
Especially with infrastructure getting better. Like, my parents live in the middle of nowhere in Fife, and they're getting fiber optic in, and so they'll get gigabit speed, and they're not even in a village; they are just in a house with nothing. There's some pigs over the road in a field. Like, that is the only neighbors they have, and they're getting fiber optic installed, which I think is, stuff like that is really exciting, because we can bring infrastructure to rural communities, and remote workers can move there. I mean, we don't have as much of a severe issue with regional inequality like the Americans do, but it will still help here. But like, I know in America, like a lot of Midwestern towns, they've offered basically tax breaks to people that have left the Bay Area, and it's worked out incredibly well for them, because they come with money, and it can bring jobs to a struggling economy. So there's a lot to be said for it, and I think it could be the great equalizer. But
Yeah,
we'll have to see. I guess it's still such early days, really, since I think you were just saying, Colin, right? It was only like a year into the pandemic that actually it was decided, yeah, we are gonna stick with this whole remote thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So I don't know. That's pretty good, but it's also a bit scary, as you said, Phil. I had a question for you on like the future of the 4 day week website and company. You've before we get to that though, you've built that entirely yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's all in React. Can go backends. Well, it's now Node. I was going to say Go there. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty standard stack tech. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, just asking if it's just you
Yeah,
that just entirely you.
just me. Yeah, just me. I mean, that's the thing about building like a job board or a simple business. It's like, it's not the most insanely complicated thing. It's literally just a list. It's a table. It could almost be a spreadsheet. And that's what I love about it. It's once you get it up and running, there's not a whole lot of maintenance. If you're building like a SaaS product or SaaS tool, I take my hat off to anyone that can pull it off. For a start, it's very, very difficult. But
So there's not a SaaS element to the 4 day week then? No, there's not a subscription or payment system or
so
how do you make money basically?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, basically, the companies pay to just get featured job ads, essentially, top of the website.
Okay,
One
like
thing
a
that I've learned,
one-off type thing,
yeah, it's usually
one-off
recurring,
payment,
and they opt out. It's like an opt out, but the churn is quite high with these things because
right?
how long can a company hire a position for? if
Yeah,
if I've not got them a job in 3 months, something's wrong in my end almost. It's
yeah,
almost
yeah.
so yeah, they pay a monthly subscription to get kind of featured on the website, but it's not
Mhm.
like a traditional SaaS in that you're using the tool every day and it's like getting new features and
Got you.
you need it for your job. This is more just like that's what I love about it. It's just so simple, so it doesn't need
Yeah,
crazy complicated tech, and that's the thing. Like, see, once I got it up and running, I almost like try and encourage myself not to make changes. It's just like, I should really be using my time elsewhere. I'm only one person trying to do this. Just became a dad recently. Time is precious. So it's just trying to be as disciplined as possible. But yeah, just me. And hopefully I can spin some things off it. That's the next plan. But we'll see how that goes. Also called shiny object syndrome, as I'm sure you know. I should really focus on the main thing.
yeah. I've
Know
got
that
that
well.
problem as well.
Yeah.
It's yeah, shiny object syndrome. Ooh, this looks cool. What does look cool for you just now?
So I mean, I've danced about with so many different ideas. I've got like a document of just different ideas that come in my head, but I always knew that how difficult it is to get something that works for a start because I've got like the war
Yeah,
wounds of like trying for years. So now I've
same.
got something working, and I've got yeah, I've got like a kind of small audience. There's like 40,000 like kind of developers on the newsletter. So if I've got this asset, I should really be kind of building on top of it, maybe rather than starting completely from scratch. So I'm thinking of doing something in the developer space, helping developers get jobs in some other flavor. I know it's really boring, but you know, I'm not completely financially free, shall we say. So you just got to, keep doing those boring businesses until that hopefully comes. But yeah, it's tough. It's damn hard. Have you got some side projects yourself then that you've got some more wounds from, or
Well,
just
over like I was chatting about this with Cameron a wee while ago. Like the start of the pandemic, I tried to build and I've never taken any of the ideas that I've had to the point of trying to try them out in the market. I've kind of got them to the point of proof of concept, and
Mhm.
then I'm about to try them out in the market, and I go, I'm done now. Like, so I put so
I know
much
how you
effort into
feel.
the proof of concept that the prospect of like trying to get users for it like completely overwhelms me, and I just go, I'd rather just play this new computer game that I've got. And so far haven't done that with the Coda career. Cameron will be pleased to hear. Working diligently on the Coda career in the background. That's currently my new computer game. But yeah, one I had before is I tried to build my own back end as a service system. You know what I mean by that? Like
Back end as
like
a
uh, like
service.
like 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 my own Firebase system,
Oh right, okay.
and then I'd
Wow.
like have subscriptions, kind of like um there was one that went bust a few years ago. It was like a really big one. What was it?
There's
Oh, I can't remember
Supabase.
what
Is
it's
that one
called.
as well? Is that?
Similar to
Yeah, I thought
Superbase.
you were going to
Yeah,
Yeah.
mention
yeah,
Superbase because that does look very. I haven't
yeah,
tried it, but it looks very cool.
yeah. It's the simple idea of it is that you like it was kind of before the days of before the days of just calling a JS function on your front end to like save some data was actually like quite novel. Like you connect to like a remote database just through JavaScript calls, and it just saves it, and you do it directly from your front end. You don't have to bother about like building a back end that then takes the request and then saves it and does your CRUD thing. It's more just just call the front end, call the back end directly from your front end using a simple little client tool. And then I got like involved in sockets and all that. So basically, if that data then changes, then you then get notified of like the data change and try to build it like that. It was quite fun, bit of a project. Didn't go that far. The next idea I had was one about basically this app we're using right now. It's similar to that, like where you to remotely record podcasts with guests rather than doing them in person. So I've had a few things.
You nearly had
All
Zencastr
those-
beat on that as well, because like Zencastr hadn't
So
properly launched when you were working on that.
yeah, I don't think they had. I seriously considered like trying to take it to the marketplace, and I built this prototype, and it works fairly well. Like the prototype, kind of similar, like a little waveform. You press record, and then it records natively for all the guests rather than trying to do it over the wire. So uh, hopefully the Coda Creator will become a bit more of a bigger side project. We'll see though.
Yeah, we're trying to
Yeah,
build
I
a
forget.
community
Like,
platform. Basically,
sorry, on you
is
go,
the
Cam.
no, sorry. We're basically trying to build a community platform at the moment, and we're
Yeah,
trying to be basically that missing link. Um, I guess particularly between, I think what's the tagline we're going with now, Colin? Like 0 to 5 years experience, where people are in the
yeah,
first few years of their career to try and advance and level up in their career or break in some cases as well. So that's basically what we're trying to do, and we've got a few irons in the fire with that, but
exactly,
yeah. We've been very busy,
exactly.
but
Well,
good busy.
we've we've basically
Good to
found
hear.
that like we basically found that and it's just like a little bit of a segue into the Quora career behind the scenes. We basically found that peop people need support, whether they're thinking about getting into tech or coding or software or data or whatever, or whether they're actually getting into it, or whether they're at uni, they're doing a CS degree and they're thinking about their first job, whether they're at a boot camp and they're thinking about their first job, whether maybe they've been to a boot camp and they've got their first job but they're looking for their second job. We found that even people within that like 2 to 3 year experience level, they need support, they need a network. So what we're trying to make the Quora career is that support network, um, and we're going to hopefully offer ways of people interacting in a better way, in a kind of nicer way on the Discord and on our website and things to like help people. For example, one of the things that happens quite often is we get people on our Discord posting on our CV channel saying, "Can you review my CV?" So we're going to try and like make some little tools around that might make that look like a little bit easier to do from our website, and try and kind of tap into that kind of that side of the people that need help type market that are
Yeah, I
maybe
mean, I
looking
think
for.
everyone needs help, really. It doesn't matter if you're junior or
Yeah,
senior. Like, even I
yeah,
remember first time kind of leading a small data team, and I'd never done that before. It's like, can someone help? I felt a little bit like, please, someone show me what I'm meant to do. So it's yeah, I get it for sure. So, what stage is all that at then? Have you started these projects or the
yeah.
analysis tool and that?
Well, we've started all of that stuff. I guess it's just hard when you're full time in it, to
Yeah.
to to commit to it. That's to that same level. Um, how did you find that you started this 4 day week thing when you were full time somewhere else? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was full time, and I just basically I didn't obviously have a kid then. I don't think I could do it now, to be honest with you. But I just tried it as much at the weekends and evenings, and just keep it really light and not complicated. Just speed is everything. Doesn't matter if it's messy.
Yep.
As I was saying to you before the call, my code, I am ashamed of it sometimes, and even some of the comments in the code that just says like "I'm sorry." It's
I've had a few of
it's
those.
just like
Apologizing, apologizing
apologizing to my future self.
to the
So
compiler gods or somebody, I don't know, the interpreter or whatever it is. It's
So
yeah,
basically, at that point, building it on the side, and then eventually I was getting a bit of traction. I got my first customer, and I was kind of like, "Oh, right, maybe I should take this a bit more seriously." But I wasn't ready to like quit my job at that point. So I just asked my boss, do you mind if I drop down to part-time? And I thought, I was so nervous even asking him. And he just
Nice.
went, yeah, that's fine. And I was like, okay, that was easy. And then the more I think about it, like, hiring developers is so hard. It's much more of a pain them losing you than you dropping down to part time. And at the end of the day, like, this is why I'm kind of into the 4 day week. My output from going from 5 days to three didn't change a whole lot. Honestly, that's what honestly feel like. Just because you're almost forced naturally to just be like ruthlessly efficient in everything you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went down to three days a week. Did that for about a year, and then I was like, right, okay, I've got enough customers now that hopefully it continues, and if it does, and runway and all that sort of stuff. I was like, see the worst case scenario, and this isn't meant to sound big headed or anything like that, but the market is so good for developers, right? If you really want to go and get a job, if it all goes Pete Tong, you can go and get a job. So I was
Yeah.
thinking the risk isn't as big as I think it is in my head. If it goes wrong and I've got to go and get a job in a year, that's fine, whatever. So yeah, so I've made the leap in February and haven't needed a job yet, which is good, but we'll see. Don't want to tempt fate. But
That's one of the just ultimately one of the absolutely while we like make hay while the sun shines and all that, while the market's still really really good, like, and even if it's not so good, it's it's still like one of the most lucrative kind of careers in terms of the choice of and the demand for your skill. So if there are any listeners out there that are a bit entrepreneurial, it's and you want to build your thing, it's worth just reminding them that yeah, you can always fall back on, you know, if you've got the skills at least, you can always fall back
security, yeah.
on that
So
security. But my advice to people on that is don't be too cocky about it, because there's definitely people that just I've definitely seen people that just think they can just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna, and actually they maybe they don't have they haven't learned enough, or they don't have the right attitude. Um, so yeah, if anybody's out there thinking I'll do that, just be careful. That's
And
what I'm
make sure
saying.
you build your contact book as well. Like that is, I gave a talk
Very important.
at a co-clan event last week, and I was saying like, especially earlier in your career, well, I guess all the way through, but you're only as good as your contact book. Like, realistically, getting a job, over half of it is your networking ability, because chances are you're going to get reached out to about jobs as long as you can prove that you're at least a competent programmer. Like, it's all about the network, like in terms of like who you know, what you can do, and just getting yourself out there a little bit, be that virtually um, or in person. Like for example, on Twitter, Phil, I've been trying to grow my brand on there. Like I could use some tips actually, because I've noticed you've been really consistent at it, but I can never work out what to tweet is my main problem. At least I can work out a few things to tweet when
I'm the
Scotland are
same.
losing in the rugby, but yeah, I don't think people want to hear that.
oh, it's hard, honestly. That's one thing I learned in all this. Like, see, even just tweeting once a day, that's what I try and do. And it's like, see, growing your personal brand, it sounds like the worst thing. I even hate that sentence, but I'm doing it, whatever. Even just scheduling like one tweet a day, tough. It is honestly quite hard to keep that up consistently. So what I do is basically just use one of these scheduling tools, and anytime I've got an idea, even if it's out a walk or whatever, just put it in a really rough format, and then I'll tweak it up later. It is what it is, but yeah, I completely agree. You've got to be networking and just putting yourself out there. It helps massively. And LinkedIn as well has been great for that. So it always amazes me when like some developers don't have a LinkedIn. Sometimes I think it's like, I don't know, they just have this vendetta against Microsoft or whatever it is. But you should just have a LinkedIn, like even if it's just your latest job and a
Yeah.
photo.
You just have to have a presence on LinkedIn. Like, it boggles my
Yeah.
mind. The juniors that don't have LinkedIn as well. It's like, how do you expect to get found? Like, as a former recruiter, like, believe me, that is all we did. Like, that is all we looked on LinkedIn. Because to be brutally honest, like, as a recruiter, like when we looked at someone's GitHub, you can't really tell what a good or a bad GitHub is. You often can't work out how to get in contact with that person anyway. So in the end, we're just like, oh, lots of green squares, they must be good. And there was one situation where an office that I worked in, and this is really embarrassing, and I know some of my former colleagues from this job listen. So basically, we all collectively thought incorrectly that the number of stars on someone's profile was basically how good they were, and it was just the number of starred repositories they had. And then we got this guy, and we were like, this candidate is the bee's knees. He's got like 10,000 stars on GitHub. And but the worst
Love it.
part
That's
was we
funny.
sent out like a mail shot to like all the hiring managers that were all technical, and we were like, you won't believe this guy. 10,000 GitHub stars. And obviously all he did was he was just interested in stuff and just obviously spent a lot of time browsing open source and just started everything. It's so
They
bad.
just
It's like
fork
saying
them
like,
all.
oh,
Yeah.
he's retweeted 100,000 things on Twitter. He's so good at marketing. Like, it was so bad.
It's an interesting
I think
point though. Like people make quite a big deal about like getting your GitHub profile sorted out and that all the rest of it. And like I'm actually not convinced that that's out. I mean, I think you should do it to like min max, like, but it's definitely one of the things that's maybe more min. Like you could do it and it'll give you some benefit, but
How do you mean min max?
it's not gonna like I mean like so the lowest hanging fruit, like the easy things to do to get you a job would be have a LinkedIn, like, put on you like what kind of job you're looking for, add your roles, all that sort of stuff. But having a GitHub that's polished and has a portfolio on it or whatever, to me that's not something that everybody needs to be able to be seen. And someone's not gonna look at that and go, oh, this person is amazing, like, because they've got like a GitHub that has portfolio work on it or whatever. Whereas if someone will look at you and go, wait a minute, they don't have a LinkedIn, that's a bit weird. That's like that's
Red flag.
a very strange. Do they even want a job? Are they are they even a human being? Is there a person out there? So I just mean like I controversially don't think that the whole portfolio and GitHub polish thing is something that you should prioritize highly if you're like looking to like
yeah.
get seen. But it definitely would make a difference if you're looking to like just max the hell out of like everything and get yourself like noticed. GitHub's not a social tool or a job finding tool. It's a thing for sticking code on, and who cares if
I
it
think
doesn't
you probably
reflect.
get more value out of getting like a professional headshot than like spending 1,000 hours touching up your GitHub. No offense.
Absolutely. That's a really
Like,
that's a really good shout. Yeah.
like the thing is, that
Yeah.
you said it yourself, Cam. Like, but most recruiters obviously aren't technical. So there's that side of it. They're not even going to look at. I don't imagine. I've never really like GitHub. I don't know, but I've never used it at all in any of my hiring efforts or getting a job.
Yeah.
It's just been
Same.
LinkedIn really.
Yeah.
So yeah, get a good headshot and just tidy up your LinkedIn would be 10 million times better, in my opinion.
100%. That's a sort of more succinct version of what I was trying to say.
But it's not even hard to get a professional headshot. Like, most modern phones come with some kind of portrait mode. Just stand against a white wall and get someone else to take a picture of you just like a couple of meters away, and it will look amazing. And you can even like do some stuff with it on. I mean, Colin's the Canva whiz, so I don't even need to tell you this, Colin. But the amount of stuff you can just do on
Canva.
Canva for free is unbelievable. Like, and you can do all kinds of headers for your profile and that kind of thing. Like, I think if people are listening now, you don't have to tweet a million times a day. You don't have to have 100,000 followers, but you can, for like you were saying, min maxing, Colin. Like, it's not too much effort to like actually make the presentation around the headshot and banners and stuff really nice. So it's definitely worth doing. And like, it's just these little things that stand out. And if I'm a recruiter who's looking at 50 junior developers and one's got a really professional profile, even if it's subliminal, like, I'm probably going to favor that
Yeah.
person because they've got a very fleshed out online presence.
What if they didn't have a
Definitely.
photo? Would that change your opinion?
It's a difficult one because I understand some people don't have. Some people are worried about. So I actually made a TikTok about this, and I said you need to have a picture on LinkedIn. And someone came back to me and said, "What about discrimination?" And I didn't really have an answer for that because that's a really good point.
Mm, yeah,
So I
interesting.
didn't really know,
Don't know.
actually.
Yeah,
I
I don't
don't
know
know
either.
whether it would have affected me like subliminally or not about like picking a profile or not. And I guess if people don't want to do that, that's fine. You can have
Mm,
something representative. I think as long as you don't have the default, like maybe if you have some form of avatar or something, like I've seen
mm,
some people do it with
mm.
like a robot or something, like a cartoon robot if they're a dev. But it's an interesting one. I understand where people are coming from about the discrimination angle, though. And it was I didn't expect that response on TikTok, but I did think it was a good point. So I don't really have
Definitely.
a clear answer, but it's something worth considering for people.
Yeah, difficult one to get right. I mean, like one of the things I'm doing on the side, I said I've got a couple of side projects. One of them is like a marketplace for developers, just to
Mm.
like create a profile, and it's in the blockchain space. I'm sorry, Colin. But anyway,
How can you afford to run it? You must have a lot. You must have a lot of ETH to like pay for your gas fees to like
it's just
send and receive data. I suppose with the way AWS is going with the price behind that, you may as well stick it in the blockchain because it's going to cost every bit as much.
But yeah,
You were
so like
saying,
it's just I was just in it's Ruby on Rails, by the way. I'm not doing any blockchain stuff myself, but like the blockchain kind of niche and the kind of Web3, it's like a different type of, I don't know, the culture is different almost, and like everyone's got avatars that are like dogs and cats and stuff, and I'm like, you're trying to get a job, and I always thought it was, maybe I'm just a dinosaur. It could be that I'm a dinosaur, but if
I'm the
I'm the
same as you,
person,
Phil. I'm a dinosaur
like,
too.
you know, just kind of the guy's got a picture of a avatar dog as the person. I was like, anyway.
Nah, I'm with you. It's weird.
Yeah,
It's a bit strange.
Yeah, I
behind the
think because there's
times.
a lot more of culture of behind certain cryptocurrencies, like the promotion of being anonymous and obviously decentralization. And whilst in the West, obviously we're lucky enough to have freedom of expression, but I guess that's where it comes from. But
Mm,
it's an interesting point, and yeah, I've definitely seen on LinkedIn like that's carried over. Obviously, someone's not calling themselves like. I think there's a guy that I follow on Twitter called the Crypto Duck, and I follow his takes on stuff, and his profile looks ridiculous because it's just this cartoon duck, but actually gives out really good advice. But like, I just wonder if that would fly in the Web 2 world on LinkedIn if you just had a picture of a duck and referred to yourself as, I don't know, the React duck or the, the Next.js duck. Uh, yeah, I guess it's just different culturally. So I guess people should just adapt to their environment, much like animals. Not saying developers are animals, but yeah, I get adjust your environment and like
yeah,
something I always encourage people on here. Like sometimes we do end up falling into, because me and Colin both from the UK, we end up falling into the trap of promoting advice that is very UK centric. Like sometimes you've got to consider your local
Yeah.
market and either technologies are popular there or the customs. Like for example, Americans, you've got to have that one page CV or resume as they would call it. Whereas for us, like no one cares about fitting it all on one page. Just little things like that.
yeah. No,
Yep.
very interesting. True.
Yeah. Cool. So on that note, actually, we are trundling towards the hour mark, so that more or less wraps it up. But before we do go, Phil, if you want to find out more about yourself and the 4 day work week, where can they go to? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I mean, the website is just 4dayweek.io. Whether you want to use the number or the letters is fine. I got both of them. On
Nice.
Twitter, I have the worst username ever. I won't even go into it. It was a miss. Anyway, it's
It
just
should be
search
below
Phil
you on the
from
video.
4dayweek.
Actually, we should have edited
Oh,
it
there
to be
you
below
go.
you, so people can go
There
to.
you
It's
go.
like
So you can
Philo
see that.
Star or something, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was meant to be Ringo Starr, but with Phil for Ringo, but I didn't realize Ringo Starr actually had two R's, so it just makes no sense. I'll use one. So it's a mess. And that way you feel bad changing it. It's like having an email that has, my email's got 2005 in it, and it's like, why did I put 2005 in the email? Regrets,
Love that.
regrets.
People are
But
going to think
anyway,
you're like
Yeah.
15. Like,
that's what I'm thinking. In 10 years' time, you could maybe believe that I am only 40 or whatever. Yeah. So yeah,
cool.
thanks for having me on though. That was good fun.
It's
Enjoyed it.
been a really good chat. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
do
it's
want to pick
been.
your brains a little bit more on your website. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
thanks
much.
so much from me as well for coming on. And if you want to get in touch with you, Colin, are you active on Twitter these days? Because I know you were
I'm
trying to
active on
decide
Twitter. Occasionally rant about political stuff on there, so apologies.
who doesn't like a
It's
political rant.
Colin underscore Riddell. Is it Colin
Cool.
underscore Riddell? I had to check. It's written below. I stuck
Yeah,
it
it's
below.
written below you, and
Um,
mine's written below me at Cam Blackwood 95. And then make sure to follow the Code of Career for updates as well. Feel free to join our Discord, codeofcareer.com/Discord, and follow our TikTok. And we are making a big push on YouTube as well. So if you are watching this on YouTube, we are eternally grateful. If not, please go and listen to it again on YouTube if that's not too much of an ask.
Like and
But
subscribe.
anyway, yeah, like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks again so much for coming on, Phil. And thank you as well, listeners, for tuning in to another episode of The Coder Career. We will see you every other Monday. Thanks, everyone.